Today we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be seeing FutureCanoe's TikToks and Shorts. Instead of just one video, we're going to be seeing a lot of them at once. It's better that way. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and be sure to check out my other recipes on my channel, which I do have plenty of. Now, let's get started.
It's called arayas. It's basically a meat stuffed pita and it takes less than 30 minutes to make.
I'll tell you guys at the end if it actually took me less than 30 minutes.
I thought for a minute there she said arepas. What she's making is arayas. As she said, they're going to be made in like pita bread. They're very tasty and delicious. They're super easy to make. They are. Basically, it's kind of like an empanada, or like an open empanada. Arepas are also very tasty and delicious. Actually, there are a lot of tasty and delicious things. They really are.
Start by cutting our pita halfway down the middle.
Start by cutting my pita right down the middle.
Ground beef and add garlic, feta, parsley, and a bunch of spices. I also like to add some dried mint and harissa.
To ground beef, we're gonna add garlic, my never-ending raclette, parsley, smoked paprika, and this Mexican harissa.
And as always, FutureCanoe adds the wrong ingredients. That's not harissa, that's actually Mexican salsa, which is actually a very popular salsa, by the way. Harissa is actually a blend of spices, and like with rasa hanout and everything else, I'm sure that the recipes vary from country to country, but basically it's peppers, garlic, coriander, caraway seeds. Again, though, with other spice blends, they vary greatly when you go from country to country or town to town, depending on where you buy it.
And open up our pita halves and start stuffing them.
We'll open up our pita and start stuffing it.
I like to add a lot of meat, that way they're a bit more filling.
I like to add a lot of meat out of habit.
Sear them on both sides until golden and crispy.
You want to be careful not filling these too thick, because if you do, they're not going to cook as quickly. I mean, it's like anything, no? If you make a burger like this thick, it's going to take a lot longer than a burger that's this thick, isn't it? So if you want it medium or you want it a little underdone, that's fine. But when you're dealing with ground beef, or ground meat for that matter, it's very important to be extra careful, because you can get food poisoning easily with ground meat. The bacteria is not just on the surface of the meat. When you grind it up, it gets mixed in with the rest of the meat. So while you can have a steak medium and not get sick, with ground meat, the probability is a lot higher.
Sear both sides in the pan until golden and crispy.
And I promise the meat fully cooks.
Something tells me the meat is not cooked, so I'm gonna throw it into the air fryer for 8 minutes. This one's a little too thick.
This is what I mean by make them thinner. That way it fully cooks. 8 minutes in an air fryer on top of it. Huh?
The thinner one is much better, so let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. My first time having arayas is like a more tidy flatbread burger. Took me almost an hour for some reason, but I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Alright, thank you.
You know, looking at this recipe though, it actually does look like a good recipe, so I think it would be tasty. But like with everything, when you try a recipe, before you fully cook everything off, I would suggest to take a portion of this recipe and cook it off. So just take a little portion of the meat, make a little burger patty, a little teeny one, cook it off, and then taste it. And if it needs more seasoning, more spice, more salt, more pepper, whatever it may be, but that way you know, instead of eating it raw, getting sick, or making it and then cooking everything off, and then, you know, it's like missing something. It really does make a difference. Trust me, especially if you want to impress anyone.
¿Sabías que si le agregas una botella de Coca-Cola a las alitas de pollo?
Why is the chicken in a glass jar? But anyways, the master of all languages, FutureCanoe, is back at it again. We're gonna pour some Coca-Cola into some pollo.
FutureCanoe is going to be following a Latino recipe. Now keep in mind, if you are learning Spanish, yeah, pollo is chicken. You do not use the word polla. There are also a few other words that in Mexico it means something, and here in Spain it actually means something basic, like coger, which means to grab something. In Mexico, it means another thing, which I'm not going to say that on YouTube. I want to keep this somewhat PG, but in any case, in Spain, it's used all the time. It's not a bad word.
2 cucharadas de salsa de tomate.
Salsa tomate is definitely ketchup.
Salsa de tomate. FutureCanoe's right with this.
1 cucharada de mostaza.
Mostaza is mustard.
2 cucharadas de salsa de soya.
Salsa sodium is soy sauce. Makes a lot of sense.
Is salsa de soja. Salsa de soja. Soy sauce. If you want, you can substitute with a little chili jam. Same thing.
¡Woo! Una cucharada de miel
Meal is probably maple syrup.
y luego cocinas las alitas.
Miel is not maple syrup. Miel is actually honey. If you use a good honey, it'll add flavor. If you use a cheap quality honey, it won't.
In a pan, we're gonna spray some oil and start searing the chicken.
Le agregamos unos 2 dientes de ajo,
Alitas or chicken wings. FutureCanoe's staying true to fashion, always using something else other than the actual thing to make the recipe.
la Coca-Cola que quedó
We'll give both sides some color and throw in some garlic and a little bit more Coke.
y también la salsa que preparamos.
We'll pour in the sauce and mix that into the chicken.
Y tapamos por unos 15 minutos.
We'll let it simmer for 7 minutes so the sauce is thickened.
Y logramos unas alitas que están para chuparse los dedos.
Now we can put it on a plate and ready to be enjoyed. Let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10.
To chupar los dedos is actually to suck your fingers. It depends on where you want to say that. In this context, it's okay, but again, it's not something that you want to say in the average day. Chupar los dedos. In English, obviously, as many of you know, we don't say that. We say like finger licking good or something like that. It doesn't sound as bad to suck your fingers. Sucking your fingers is not, you know.
Sorry, children.
I think we just made barbecue chicken in a really complicated way. I guess barbecue sauce is just ketchup and Coca-Cola. Overall, it's pretty weird. I'll give it a 7.8.
The funny thing is that if he added a little bit of like liquid smoke, this would have been a very basic barbecue sauce recipe. Long story short, it probably didn't taste bad, but I don't use Coca-Cola in my recipes. I know that Coca-Cola is used in different recipes, either in Filipino cuisine, making like adobo, or even in some Mexican recipes. But really with Coca-Cola and everything, it's just, I don't drink Coca-Cola. It's not my thing. What I would recommend, instead of just like searing the chicken wings, is to actually fry them. Pane them, fry them twice so you get a nice crispy texture. And if you want even a crispier texture, leave them uncovered in the fridge the night before. That way the skin will dry out. Make sure it has no hairs on it and pat it dry. And you'll end up with super delicious chicken wings. I have a recipe for chicken wings if you want to see that video.
Too much leftover milk? Deep fry your milk.
Too much leftover milk? Maybe my dad's back.
Sugar
30 grams of sugar
and cornstarch.
and cornstarch.
Keep mixing.
Keep mixing.
I've never had this as a problem growing up. Like never. Actually, I've had the opposite problem. You know when you go to the store, you buy a couple gallons of milk and within less than a week, it's gone.
You want to get the consistency like this.
We want the consistency like this. It kind of looks like that thing inside of Joshua Wiseman's buns. You know, the paste that he uses for texture.
Yeah, it does look like that consistency. When adding cornstarch, it's best if you take a little bowl of cornstarch. You can add, say, since we're going to be using milk, a little bit in, mix it, and then add that into the rest of it, just to make sure you don't have lumps.
Pour the milk in your mold.
Pour the mold in my milk.
Fridge at least for an hour.
Fridge for an hour.
Ooh, this is like a tofu.
What kind of tofu looks like that?
Cornstarch,
Cornstarch?
egg, panko.
Panko.
What she's doing right now is paneing the milk. I would also recommend when doing the panko, if you notice that the panko breadcrumbs are too big, panko is wonderful to use. You can blend them up a little bit to make them a little finer, and that way you have a better texture when you go to fry. It's important too, especially if you're going to be frying anything that's super liquidy, like when making croquetas or a bechamel. You don't want them to be leaking out when you're frying them, because then the fryer goes crazy, starts spitting.
Deep fry for a couple minutes.
We'll deep fry at 350 for 5 minutes, and they turn into mozzarella sticks.
Hello, hello. This one is for you.
Hello, thanks. This one's also for me then. Got really creamy on the inside. Tastes even better with maple syrup. 9 out of 10. Alright, thank you.
Normally when you go to a tapas restaurant like here in Spain, it depends on where you are, but normally they will actually deep fry brie or camembert. Sometimes you see mozzarella sticks, sometimes you'll see camembert or brie. And they're tasty, but normally what they have accompanied with them is either jam of some sort or chili jam. Here though, the chili jam is super sweet. It's called like marmelada de pimientos, and it's not the same chili jam that Jamie uses, I think. I don't know how sweet his is because I never tasted it, but they do actually serve it with chili jam, and it's fine. It tastes fine.
Wings without deep frying them. So here's how to make these honey sesame sriracha chicken wings in the oven.
Baked chicken never goes well on this channel, but this looks super legit, so let's give it a try.
He's using chicken legs again. Something tells me that a lot of chickens are missing legs.
Add white vinegar, smoked paprika, a couple other spices,
Add smoked paprika and some salt.
some baking powder, cornstarch, and beef tallow to get these extra crispy.
A key bump of baking powder, cornstarch, and my bucket of duck fat.
Actually, duck fat would taste really good, huh? Duck fat goes very well. What I would recommend before doing all this with the chicken is to leave them uncovered the night before in the fridge. You get that skin super, super, super dry, and then pat them dry just before you mix. This is important. You don't want wet wings.
Lay these on a wire rack. Bake these for about 30 minutes on each side or until they're nicely golden.
Lay them on a wire rack. We'll just bake them for an hour without flipping, because they're on a wire rack.
For the sauce, melt down some butter, go on with sriracha, honey, smoked paprika, garlic salt, sesame seeds, sesame oil, and a squeeze of lime juice.
For the sauce, I'm just gonna do a hella tapatio and some maple syrup. We'll dunk it in, give it a taste, and rate it 1 through 10.
I honestly think they're gonna taste good. I mean, she has a lot of spices, a lot of seasoning with the chicken. So in reality, you don't need like a super, super like flavorful sauce to go with them, but it'll help. You could even use a little bit of barbecue sauce to go with this and you'd be fine.
Not as crispy as it looked, maybe because I didn't put enough starch in it, but it's just as good as an average fried chicken without all the oil and stuff. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. Alright, thank you.
If you want to get a super, super crispy like chicken wing, frying it is a good option. It's the old way of doing it and it works really well. Today though, with air fryers, I mean, if you have one, use it. It cuts down on your calories. It's just that a lot of controversy with air fryers and are they safe for plastics and everything else. Me personally, I don't have one. Doesn't mean I wouldn't get one, but I would prefer to have an air fryer that's like metal.
You will never look at a cucumber the same after watching this video.
What she taught us in the video is that we can remove the bitterness in it by cutting an end off and just start rubbing it. And this white stuff will come out. It takes a little while, so I'm gonna rub it on the couch.
It makes you wonder what else she's been doing with that cucumber.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
Apparently it's called cucurbitacin, a bitter tasting compound that's naturally in cucumbers. You can go a step beyond by rubbing salt on it beforehand to remove the stipples, which also takes out bitterness and increase the freshness. Maybe it's placebo, but it does have a hint of sweetness now. I'll give this technique a 9 out of 10.
Normally when you cut a cucumber, it does start to bleed a little bit, which is perfectly normal. Even when you cut zucchini, it does bleed. I honestly think that some people have too much time on their hands.
Truly a genius. I found a trick that changed how I cook chicken.
I would have never thought of peeling chicken, so let's see how genius this man is.
Take 1 frozen chicken breast and grate it using a peeler.
Here goes my Saturday afternoon. Not only does the frozen block of meat hurt my hand, it also takes forever to peel. This man is not a genius, bro. He's just unemployed. But I sharpened it like a spear, so I can stab and kill him, and then eat the chicken. This is the perfect crime.
I admit, I've never seen a chicken used as a shank before. Freezing your chicken breast and then shaving it super thin isn't something that you typically see, but it is something that if you want to make like carpaccio or anything with the meat, it is a good idea. But what you want to do is to chill the meat or freeze it to a point where it's not rock hard, but just a little soft. Then you can put it on the deli slicer and slice super, super thin paper slices. That's the easy way on plating it, because if not, what will happen with a lot of meats, with either pancetta or anything else, is you won't get a nice, crisp, clean cut.
Then grate 2 potatoes and 1 onion the same way and put everything into a bowl.
Now that we're done with whatever that was, let's start peeling this potato. And this feels right. I mean, this peels right. I'll just chop the onion. I don't feel like bawling my eyes out right now.
Alright, so I guess that everything with this recipe is used with a potato peeler, which is fine. That's okay. Just if you're going to be doing that, be careful and make sure that it's sharp, because otherwise you're going to be there for a while.
200 grams of mozzarella cheese.
200 grams of mozzarella cheese.
Add 1 egg.
Add 1 egg.
Oregano, salt, and black pepper.
Oregano, salt, black pepper.
Is he going to be making like a meat hash brown or something?
Mix everything really well.
I think I've seen people on Instagram make food for their dogs the exact same way.
Heat a bit of oil and 1 tablespoon of butter.
A bit of oil and 1 tablespoon of butter. The oil seems kind of redundant.
You don't need to add both, but the oil does prevent the butter from browning too quickly. So it's not about reaching a smoke point, but it helps to keep it like a little lower.
Pour the mixture into the pan and spread it evenly with a spoon.
Pour the mixture into the pan and spread it evenly with a spoon.
Cover and cook for 15 minutes.
Cover and cook for 15 minutes.
Then flip it using a plate, return it to the pan, and cook for another 10 minutes.
I ain't using no plate. I'm gonna flip it by using the flick of the wrist.
You fucked up.
To be honest, the robot voice kind of looks like he made a Spanish tortilla, and it looks pretty good.
Sprinkle parsley on top for extra flavor.
Yeah, because that parsley is gonna save this. Honestly, this doesn't look that bad. Let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. It tastes like a hash brown that's also a chicken pot pie. The peeled chicken got so thin, just dispersed into the mixture. So it's kind of like a high protein potato pancake. I guess this man is a genius. 8.5 out of 10. You should give it a try.
It's not very conventional on how to like peel the chicken or nothing, but if you wanted to add chicken to like a tortilla and you're making like a tortilla or anything, it looks pretty good. It really does.
I'm a dietitian and this is what I ate for breakfast.
I'm a dietitian's biggest enemy and I'm gonna try out this breakfast.
First, add rice paper to a hot pan.
You can use the rice paper for a lot of things. I mean, if you want to cut down on calories, not a bad idea, but dry to a non-stick pan.
Then chili oil.
First, add a rice paper to a hot pan and then some chili oil.
An egg.
Spread it out with a fork.
Scallions, and top it off with Kewpie mayo and sriracha.
Scallion. I give a second chance to Kewpie mayo and some Frank's Red Hot.
Fold it in half and that's it.
Fold it in half and that's it. I'm nailing this recipe so far.
I make at least 2 of these and it only takes 5 minutes.
It took me about 7 minutes. It really is a quick and easy breakfast idea.
It's basically like making a rice paper breakfast quesadilla. What? It looks easy, and it probably is tasty.
Let's give it a sound check. It kind of looks like a really small pizza or a really thick Dorito. Let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. It's not as crispy as I had hoped, but all the flavors work together really well. It's a really light breakfast that feels kind of hearty. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 out of 10.
Not a bad recipe, and if you're trying to cut down on calories so you don't want to be eating like a lot of tortilla wraps, it may be a good option.
Did you know that if you put eggs in a can of tuna,
What happens if I put eggs in a can of tuna?
then transfer it to a container and add another egg?
Then transfer it to a... Bro, why did we put it in the first place?
Why put the egg in the can in the first place? It doesn't make sense. When you open the can, normally you open it so you drain out the rest of either the water or the oil that's in the can. Here, if you spend a little more money, you can actually get tuna that's been canned with olive oil.
We integrate the eggs well with the tuna.
We integrate the eggs and tuna with the Ligma fork.
Teaspoon of salt.
Teaspoon of salt.
A little ground pepper.
A lot of black pepper.
A little garlic powder.
A little garlic powder.
1 little dried oregano.
A little garlic powder.
Place a little oil and also half an onion cut into slices.
In a pan, we'll spray oil and start sauteing onions. This reminds me I haven't had onion rings in a really long time.
Why is the robot voice using onion rings? If you're going to be doing this, either dice, chop, mince, or julienne the onions. You don't need to be using rings.
Once at this point, we add the egg with the tuna. Spread it throughout the pan.
We put the mixture in the pan, spread it out. Why is mine so dry?
Then at this point, we add mozzarella cheese. Cover until it melts and that's it.
Then we'll add hand-shredded mozzarella cheese. Cover and melt. That's it.
With this, you have a delicious dinner that is easy to make and healthy.
Definitely pretty easy to make. I'm gonna call this a tuna pizza. If you're Italian, you can come at me in the comments.
It seems like anything, it doesn't even have to be a flatbread today, can be a pizza. If anyone does want to see a pizza video, I did make one not that long ago. It's not traditional, but it is a quick thing that you can make at home, a quick, easy little pizza, and you can make it in less than half an hour.
I had very low hopes going into it, but it's actually a pretty good omelet. Fairly healthy too. I'll probably start eating it for breakfast. 8 out of 10. Alright, thank you.
After he dumps like half a cup of hot sauce on it, yeah.
Did you know that if you add 3 eggs to 3 bananas,
Didn't know that if I add 3 eggs to 3 bananas,
then we mash it with a fork and put it in a blender?
then we mash it with a fork?
What are we gonna be making? Like banana bread or something? It's a robot voice. Don't like robot voices.
Put it in a so we didn't need to mash it with a fork, bruh.
We also add a cup of milk and half a cup of sugar and blend for 2 minutes.
Then we'll add a cup of my roommate's milk because my dad's still not back, and half a cup of sugar, and immersion blend it till smooth.
In a pan, we will place half a cup of sugar. Once at this point, we add half a cup of hot water to form a caramel.
It kind of looks like they're going to be making a dessert here, like a banana flan or something maybe.
In a pan, we'll put half a cup of sugar and half a cup of water. Just let it caramelize on its own.
Cover it with the help of aluminum foil and put it in a bain-marie for 1 hour.
We'll put the pot into hot water to make it a bain-marie. This must be what happens inside my older sister's mind when I remind her of her age. But we'll pour the mixture in, cover, and bake for an hour.
We unmold and look at what wonderful flan we have created made of bananas and eggs.
Yeah, they made a banana flan. Flans are super easy to make, but I don't eat a lot of desserts, so I don't make a lot of pastries at home. I don't eat a lot of sugar.
We unmold by flipping it over, and look what wonderful well, looks could be deceiving, so let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10.
If you don't nail the caramel sauce, this is exactly what will happen.
Remember with the moldy bread, we did such a great job? I don't know what happened here. If the lesson from the last time is always believe in yourself, the lesson this time is that life always finds a way to kick you in the crotch. Flavor's not bad though. 5 out of 10. Alright, thank you.
Kinda looks like a flan soup.
No, God!
Let's make a water pie. It's a depressingly great recipe from the Great Depression era.
It does sound like one of those depression recipes. I mean, people had to make basically whatever they could out of nothing. It was a time that a lot of people didn't have much.
To 2 cups of water, we'll sprinkle in 4 tablespoons of flour, a cup of sugar, and a splash of dessert MSG. Lay on top 5 tablespoons of butter and bake at 375 for 30. Cover, and then for another 40.
For being one of those depression recipes, a lot of these ingredients I'm sure would have cost quite a bit of money, including butter. Maybe unless you had your own like cows or anything and you turned your own butter. I'm sure even flour back then used to cost an arm and a leg.
Maybe grease the foil beforehand. After some surgery to make it presentable, we'll cool it overnight. This is the final product. It doesn't look appetizing at all, but I'm surprised that I actually set.
No, it doesn't look very appetizing, does it? Oh, it looks nasty. Ugh.
To improve the appearance, I'm gonna do a layer of sugar and brulee it. Much better than before.
A little bit better, but still you could have gone a little heavier on the sugar and the brulee. You should have burned it just a little more. When making a creme brulee, you want it to the point where you can take a spoon and smack it. Yeah? And if you hear a crack, it's good. Especially if the custard inside the creme brulee is super creamy.
Cut into it. I feel like it kind of looks like a pumpkin pie without the pumpkin, but anything that resembles creme brulee I can get behind. Let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. The texture is really good, but it does need more flavor other than vanilla. Considering it's a struggle meal and I'm addicted to sugar, I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
It looks a little strange, to be honest, this recipe, and I don't think all the ingredients back then would have been super cheap. So things like flour, butter, even eggs as well, I'm sure was a little difficult to get. And he also used a pre-bake pie. I can only imagine the amount of pre-made food, doughs, pies, and all the other pastries and everything if people had it back then in the 30s. That would have been super, super popular because back then you had to make a lot more from scratch than what you do today.
We tested 50 chocolate chip cookie recipes and this is the best one.
If you introduce yourself as someone who makes the best chocolate chip cookie, you immediately appear to be more trustworthy. Let's learn this recipe together.
Now just keep in mind not only the amount of ingredients that you have to have, but the time it takes to actually make 50 different chocolate chip cookie recipes.
Number one secret to a perfect chocolate chip cookie is to brown your butter. It adds that nutty, rich depth of flavor that you would find in your local bakery.
So when I finally decided to make this recipe, I realized the recipe is in their bio. When I clicked on the bio, I realized the recipe is in a separate link. When I clicked on that link, it took me to a whole separate gallery of recipes that I have to scroll down so far to find the cookie recipe. And when I clicked into the cookie recipe, I have to watch ads and read through the author's entire life story to get to the ingredients. I hate when people do stuff like that. So to make it easy for all of you, I have listed the ingredients on my Instagram, link in bio.
The other thing that's annoying is like normally when you see a lot of these recipes like in blogs, they show like the best blah blah blah. Okay, because this is hyperbole that they use for everything, the best of everything. But then when you go into the link, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll, go past all the ads and all the BS and go down to the bottom to find the recipe, just to see the measurements. Why make it so difficult?
First step is to brown a whole block of butter. You have to be careful though, because it might explode like this. And once it's so foamy, you can't tell if it's brown or not. It's probably time to take it out.
They're making beurre noisette, which is brown butter. If you want to brown the butter even darker, this is called beurre noir, or black butter, and it will have more of a bitter flavor. So if you want a more bitter cookie, you can brown it.
You lose some of the water during the browning process, so we recommend adding a few tablespoons back in.
I'm gonna put some ice cubes in it because ice in hot oil sounds pretty fun.
For a chewy, soft texture, we recommend using a mixture of bread and all-purpose flour.
So 1 3/4 of a cup of AP flour. Whenever the recipe requires a mixture of flours, I just use all-purpose. It's called all-purpose for a reason, along with a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking soda.
What she was doing though in the original recipe is actually a good thing. You do want to sieve the flour just in case if you have any lumps. But when you measure the flour, instead of doing it by cups, I recommend doing it by weight. It is more accurate. If the recipe is only by cups, that's fine, but you're not going to get a consistency that you can get with weighing it. There's a big difference.
We also like adding in a teaspoon of espresso powder to enhance the chocolate flavor.
So in a separate bowl, we'll go with a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of white sugar. I love espresso powder, so I'm adding a little extra.
And the best cookie dough consistency uses 1 egg yolk mixed with 1 regular egg.
Dessert MSG, 1 egg, 1 egg yolk. Ligma fork it till smooth, add in the butter.
So far, this recipe's looking okay. It doesn't look bad. Let's see how it turns out at the end.
Combining the dry ingredients with the wet mixture.
Combine the dry ingredients and wet ingredients in a satisfying way.
Bigger pieces of chopped chocolate in addition to smaller chips to create the perfect wells of gooey goodness.
And I also know that you like the chocolate snapping sound.
I'm gonna give you what you want.
The consistency that she had in her video looked really good. His looks to be a little on the wetter side.
After we fold the chocolate into the dough, we roll them into perfect looking balls, put most of it away in the freezer, and then bake 4 of them. 350 for 14 minutes. The large size of the chocolate chunks kind of makes it look like a mess made by a baby, but I'm sure biting into it will be more satisfying as well. Let's do what they did in the beginning and split open multiple cookies at once. Yeah, a bite out of these will max out my dopamine level. Let's give it a taste and rate it 1 through 10. I think I nailed this one. Crunchy on the outside, chewy and gooey on the inside. The only issue is that it doesn't look that good, so 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, like the mouse that wanted a cookie, no? And the mouse wanted the cookie, then the mouse needed a glass of milk to go with the cookie. Yeah, it doesn't look like a bad recipe, but until you actually try it, you won't really know. And even that, a lot of recipes are just copies from other recipes that people have done and recopied and recopied. There is a difference between that and an actual pastry chef's recipe for a good chocolate chip cookie.
That looks pretty insane. We have to try it out now.
We're gonna be making some viral lava cake.
Well, first, butter the cup for later use. What's the point of buttering it if we're just gonna eat it straight out of the cup?
It just helps to release it from the cup. I mean, you don't need to use it, but if you're going to be cleaning and doing the dishes later, maybe you want to add a little butter to it.
Senator, I don't know.
First, we'll go with 20 grams of Nutella. They called it hazelnut sauce in the video. It makes it sound so much better in quality. We're only going with 20 grams because we don't want this to be too rich. And then 100 grams of butter and 85 grams of dark chocolate. Heat it over medium heat till nice and silky. Till it looks sort of like this.
I guess this is one of those TikToks where they don't say anything, they just put the measurements up. Which is fine, it's perfectly fine. Maybe it's better than listening to that robot voice with bad English.
And then in a bowl, we'll add 2 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks. Then we'll add about 60 grams of sugar and beat it till it's completely dissolved. With a Ligma fork, of course. Now we'll pour in the chocolate mixture from earlier and then keep folding it till it's smooth. We don't want to beat too much air into it because we want it to be dense. like my head.
People typically, when they cook lava cakes, they always undercook them. That way the center is super gooey and runny, instead of cooking them fully and then creating like another ganache or something that they then fill the center with, which technically would be a little better and safer, because then you're not going to be eating undercooked egg.
Gluten flour is basically cake flour, so 87 grams of that, and then just a key bump of baking soda. And then we'll fold the dry ingredients in until it's smooth like this. Oh man, that was satisfying. I'll give you the same thing.
Listen. This is one of those AMSR videos. I don't watch those videos.
And then at 350 for 20 minutes. I'm gonna put it on the tray because I'm not sure if this mug is oven safe or not. Not trying to deal with explosions.
The thing is though, if you actually look at her finished product, it looked okay. But again, this is one of those recipes where you barely cook it, so the center is super runny. And you need to make sure that the eggs come up to temp, especially if you're in a place where you can get like salmonella from, you know? This is a risk that you don't want to take. Eggs in the US need to come up to at least 160 Fahrenheit. And if you reheat them, it needs to come back up to at least 165. Eggs set a little before that, so if you have a super runny like consistency, they're not up to that temp yet.
I'm gonna skip posting this on Instagram because I've learned enough words that implies feces from you guys. So we'll just taste it and rate it 1 through 10. It kind of just tastes like undercooked warm batter, but because of how much Nutella is in there, it tastes really good. But definitely not as good as just straight up eating Nutella out of the jar. So I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
The problem with this recipe is that that one was severely undercooked, especially FutureCanoe's. This was actually quite fun, wasn't it? This gave us like 10 or so different recipes of FutureCanoe that he's reviewed, and I actually like his TikToks and his shorts. They're really good. It's either that or watching just one recipe for 10-20 minutes in a video. Let me know, guys, if you like this as well. Maybe we can review more videos from other people as well. If you haven't checked out my recent review video on making Gordon or Jamie Oliver scrambled eggs, and then I also made my own, be sure to check that video out right here after seeing this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you again very soon. Until then, take care.